Define belief.
You have a right arm. Do you believe it or know it?
I know it.
How do you know it?
Because I can feel it.
You have an experience of it?
I do.
Okay. Belief is, you don't have an experience of it. You just believe it. Because if you have an experience of it, then you don't need to believe it, you know it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a direct experience of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can say, I've had an experience of pregnancy. Have I? Or was I just around? Right? I was around, right, when my kids were being born. So I could say, oh yeah, I had an experience of pregnancy, but I didn't have an experience of pregnancy because I was never pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you're pregnant, you don't know pregnancy,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't know that. You think you believe it because you can read all there is to know about pregnancy and say, I know pregnancy. No, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you've had a direct experience, you don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference between belief and knowing.
Mm-hmm.
A belief is something that you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of belief around today. And I wish that people would just have that common decency and courage to say, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know. And it's okay to say I don't know. But we have so many beliefs that we feel for us are so important in our lives,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't know them.
So what is the problem with belief?
Well, the problem is that we have so many beliefs, and it's not, you can say, I believe this or that. I believe my tea is better than your tea. I believe chocolate ice cream is better than vanilla ice cream. Those are just simple things.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the larger things in life, like, I believe there's a God.
Mm-hmm.
I believe my God is right.
Mm-hmm.
Now you got a big problem,
Mm-hmm.
because there are lots of gods,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now it's my God against your God. It's my belief against your belief. And neither one knows. They're just believing something. And usually it just gets taught to us from an early age. And it's something, all the accumulation of the information we get. And then we take it on as a belief for us. And it becomes a real problem with identity, right? If you challenge someone's belief, it's like you're challenging their identity,
Mm-hmm.
who they are. And they get very upset about that. But if you look at it a little bit deeper, what are you really challenging? It's just something that's made up, right? But the problem becomes because it becomes very, very important to people what their beliefs are. And so that's the challenge in the world, is that, and if you look at all the big challenges in the world today, right? It's all one person's belief against another person's belief.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it comes down to. I'm right, you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we're not listening to each other.
Mm-hmm.
No one's paying attention to what the other person's saying, because my belief is the way it is anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we have so many problems
Mm-hmm.
because of this.
Mm. So in the world right now, we're seeing a huge divide with beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
People who believe in human rights and those who don't. What would you recommend we do to come together so that we have a unified knowing rather than all of these beliefs in the way that we think things should be? What's the answer?
There's only one way to change this. It's for every individual to start looking at themselves. Right? The more people that examine themselves, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
The more people start to do that, the more that will spread. One enlightened being can change millions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Millions. So the more people you have that are looking to enlighten, looking to be more aware of themselves, the more that has an effect in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That is happening in the world. It doesn't look like it is. It looks like a very violent world. But that is actually happening. There are many millions of people around this world that are becoming more aware, that are looking at themselves in a deeper way. So it takes time for that process to happen. But the only way it'll change is for each individual to start looking at themselves. And it's not a judgment about who you are or your identity. It's just take a real look at yourself. And if something is a belief for you, just say, all right, let me look at that and say, is this something I really know? Or really, am I believing it? And let that inquiry go inside, you know? But you're not going to force it on people. If you force something on someone else's belief, they're just going to fight back. I remember seeing a girl behind the counter. She was wearing a peace sign. And I said, that's very nice. You have a sign for peace. And she goes, yeah. She goes, I'm going to go out later and I'm going to demonstrate. I said, oh, what are you going to do? She goes, I'm going to hold up a placard. I'm going to, I want peace. I said, well, that's not very peaceful. If you want to have peace, be peaceful. Don't demand, be peaceful. If your energy is peaceful, that will impact other people. If you're going to go out and demand it, that's anger. That's not peace.
I understand what you're saying, and yet I feel we're about to reach kind of a crisis point on this planet. We're coming into something like 60 billion people in the next generation or so. I'll have to check the numbers on that. And usually in my experience, I know I don't question myself until things become super painful, like stop working, and then I ask myself, why? Do you think we have to get to a crisis point on this planet before people actually really want to start waking up?
It seems to be how humans operate.
Yeah. Yes.
That it's always the last second, that when it becomes too much.
Yes.
But that's okay.
So, quite literally, we could all wake up the moment the planet disintegrates.
One would hope. I don't think so. I think as long as there's an earth and human beings in the condition we're in, the human being, the human experience, I think this will be around. You know, it's an ongoing process. I think the way things have happened in the past with human beings is that it usually comes to a point where things come to a head, and that's when things change. If you look at the history of human beings, all the changes that were made, they had to come to an apex for things to happen. And that's okay. In the bigger picture, that's okay.
Who would I be without my beliefs?
Joyful, happy. You see, we have an idea in our heads that belief is tied to identity. Right? Who I am is what I believe in. And that's just not true. You can go around and not have any beliefs and just be perfectly fine. I don't believe, like I said before, I believe in the goodness of my kids, I believe in the goodness of my family and my friends because I've seen it, I've experienced it, right? But to have a belief in something that I don't know, to me that's silly. Why would I believe in something I don't know? You know, why would I take on somebody else's belief? So if we tie it to identity, we have a problem. If you let go of the identity, right? The facade that you've made of who you are, like this facade, the person you go around town as, okay? If you live from the quality inside and not worry about your external identity or beliefs, you'll live just fine. You just act. You do what's necessary. You do all the things that you do anyway. You just don't get caught up in a belief about this or that. A tree then becomes not a label, but something that you can experience directly. Because if you call it a tree, I remember when I was a kid, you'd experience things like a tree. You don't know what it is. And you experience it and you say, wow, that's beautiful. And somebody says, that's a tree. It's dead then.
And it's dismissed.
It's dismissed.
Yeah.
That's a tree.
Yeah.
you know, and now it's gone labeled as a tree, and you never look at the tree the same way again. Oh, that's just a tree. But if you forget the label and you look at it directly and have a direct experience with it, it's a piece of life. It's a piece of you. And by the way, you wouldn't be here without it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What the heck is providing the oxygen?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So we have a relationship with a tree. Right? A really close relationship with trees and plants. And we take them and just disregard them. But, you know, if this next breath doesn't come in because all the trees and the plants are gone, oh, you want the trees back.
Absolutely. So, with belief, if I believe that the world is a good place, will I create that experience? And if I believe the world is a frightening, evil place, will I create that experience?
See, I don't care if the world is a good place or a bad place. All I care about is how am I? How am I? If I'm okay, it doesn't matter what's happening out there. If you perceive things as good as or bad, you're going to react to the good and react to the bad. So it's not about I want to see the world as good, because the world is never going to be always good. Because someone's going to get into a car accident. Could we consider this good? Right? So if you look at it that way, you're looking for the good, and then you dismiss the other, right? But you can't dismiss the other, because, like we were talking about God, if God is everything and God is everywhere, God's in the accident too, right? Because if God's not in that, then God's only part-time, right? It's only in this part. It's not in, well, who's in the other part then? Right? If God's supposed to be everything. So you have to accept all life, no matter what happens. This is life. This is what happens out of it. You know? Stars die. Right? They form and they die. This is a part of how, when life comes into manifestation, it comes and it goes. And violently sometimes. Really violently sometimes. And human beings are just a natural result of that. It's the same thing, right? It's wonderful and it's awful, right? It's the same thing. But it doesn't matter what is going on out there. Try not to look for the good. Try not to look for the bad. Just work on this one.
Just be present with what is.
If you're present with this, and this quality is in your control, then what does it matter?